Okay, welcome back to CIS 101 Chapter 3. We're going to pick up where we left off last week. We're going to talk a little bit about earlier we talked a little bit about how the internet got its start, how data travels on the internet, the tools and technologies used to collaborate and communicate on the web, how email and instant messaging are used to communicate over the web, the different types of e-commerce, and precautions you should take when doing business online, as well as the types of multimedia files that can be found on the web. Okay, as we finish up with Chapter 3, I want to remind you that one of the reasons why you want to learn this material is because the job opportunities, the job demand, the salaries for internet-related jobs can be very seriously nice. The job growth is above the average for all types of different jobs here in the U.S. or really in the world. And the average salary is going to be high two figures, low six figures, and that's not for a manager. That is for the individual. Managers can be expected to make more than that. We talked a little bit about search engines briefly last lecture. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today. Bear in mind that when you're talking about search engines, and these are the tools when we use our browsers to go on the internet. These are the tools we use to actually research and find various types of information. Bear in mind that not all search engines offer the same features. Okay. Bear in mind that some search engines perform certain types of searches better than others. And bear in mind that there are things like meta search engines, okay, that include multiple individual search engines and basically compile the results. Two frequently used search engines include Google and Yahoo. Okay. Most browsers will have a default search engine when it's installed on your system that you can change if you wish to. I frequently, for example, like to use Google, but I also like DuckDuckGo. And if I'm doing research, not necessarily for commercial, but for like academic purposes, just information with a view toward forming an opinion on something, I like to use not Google, but what is known as Google.Scholar, which is a distinct search engine by Google that only has in its database peer-reviewed articles. Okay, so it's very credible. You're not going to find any ads. You're not going to find anything for sale. You're not going to find any images. All you're going to find is topic material from peer-reviewed articles. So they're going to tend to be highly credible. The Google Advanced Search page will allow you to go into and change your default search engine that your browser is automatically going to use, or you can simply go to a search engine web page and begin using it that way. When you're using a search engine of any type, we have what we call advanced search methods known as a search operator, and these are common search terms where they include the and turn, the or turn, or the not turn. You can also use search operators along with phrases contained in question marks, which tell I want exactly this phrase. I want not just fire and engine, but I want specifically the term fire engine or any other term that's enclosed in quotation marks. It'll give you those exact results. Some web browsers will call a marked page a bookmark, or another term for it is going to be a favorite. It depends on the particular web browser that you happen to be using. And, okay, extra credit for you if you wish, okay, and I will, give you extra credit for this on the grading columns, grading chart, the grading tables, grading database. Okay, complete a search on a topic of your choice and capture the results using the print screen function of your computer. Okay, then complete a search on the same topic using the search operator to narrow down the results using the print screen to capture results. The idea is to show me that you can do a general search and then use a operator of some type to further narrow down the search results. For example, if you do a search for David Anderson using Google, okay, you're going to get millions upon millions of results. If you do a search for David Anderson and then Triton College, include Triton College, okay, to further narrow down the search results, you're going to get far, far fewer results, or any other topic that's of interest to you. Okay, submit the results to in Blackboard. Okay, extra credit assignment 9, and I will, if it qualifies, I will give you extra credit for it. We talked briefly about the use of email. The full term, of course, is electronic mail, but everybody calls it email. It is not just a handy dandy tool that we use to keep in touch with our friends. Email is the #1 business application across the world. Okay, you can use email to send, receive, save, and forward messages. You can include hyperlinks with material on it. You can attach files to it. It is actually every major city used to actually have a small but thriving businesses called courier delivery, where usually bike owners, is a little bit like the car, Uber or Lyft we have today, but in this case it would be usually bike owners, and basically they would use their backpacks and they would courier documents all around the city before the advent of email, because it was much faster than the normal delivery services and usually much more affordable as well. With the advent of email and the ability to attach documents to an email and send it out that way, bike-based delivery services have not entirely disappeared, but they have massively shrunk or reduced themselves from what used to be their presence. And again, as I mentioned earlier, in most email programs, you can insert an attachment or more than one attachment by clicking an attach button of some type. And the exact process will depend on the type of email that you happen to be using. We also mentioned briefly, and we'll continue to talk about social networking services and the fact they're becoming more and more popular. They are fluid. They come and they go. They become popular. They fade from popularity. MySpace, for example, used to be the 600-pound gorilla in the social media world, and then it was overtaken by Facebook. On the business side, there's LinkedIn, there's Flickr, there's Instagram, there's Pinterest, there's Twitter, and I'm sure that in 5 years' time there will be new entrants to the field, as well as some entrants we have today might very well be gone or almost gone. There are also internet services allowing us to use chat and instant messaging to engage in real-time conversations, which as well as ICQ, pronounced ICQ, which offers web-based chat room environments. And you increasingly see this services based on this built into Twitter, built into Facebook, built into Pinterest. Message boards are services that present an electronically stored list of messages. For example, Yahoo has a message board group known as Yahoo Animals. Okay, and basically what it is, it's a service for people that voluntarily, it's largely volunteer based, used to move animals from kill shelters to no-kill shelters. Some very fine kill shelters, some very fine animal shelters, unfortunately, because of monetary constraints, are forced to euthanize, put down animals after they had them for a certain amount of time. And what the Yahoo Dogs, for example, does is basically allow volunteers to move those animals from the situation where an animal is scheduled to be put down, and the volunteers will move it to a shelter where they don't have a put down policy, okay, and hopefully give it a little more time to find an owner to take it home to its forever home. We also mentioned briefly the existence of blogs, a frequently updated journal of personal thoughts and links that's posted on the internet. They can be either publicly available or for a collection of friends only. Collectively, the world of blogs is known as the blogosphere. Users can start and publish blogs at websites such as Blogger and WordPress.com or some other web service, and they can be for personal professional use, or they can actually have a commercial aspect to them. We mentioned earlier about the presence of vlogs, which are like, for example, YouTube or other web services where people actually have a blog, but they use a video link for it. And again, it can be for personal use, just for fooling around, or it can have a commercial aspect of it. I'm still amazed that a person can have a pet and basically just blog about, have a vlog about their pet and its adventures, and they can make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just from people like myself going and looking and seeing what the pet is up to. News and weather. Many users rely on mobile and standard web versions of their favorite information services: CNN, ABC News, Yahoo Weather. I know that I'm very, very fond of being able to look up my weather reports on the internet and see what, based on the internet, and see, in the morning, first thing I do when I wake up is I ask if it's raining outside, and it usually be the same as the day before. But sometimes the weather report will have changed because the weather is not, 100% reliable. And I will know at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, is it raining? Do I want to get up and take the dogs out, or can I sleep a little bit longer? Or do I want to get up and do something else? Business, career, and finance services are also available via the internet. You can consult online editions of magazines for business news, strategy information. Most news and business sites offer career and job posting sections. It used to be if you're looking for a job, you'd go out and you'd buy. I still remember when I was getting out of the Army, I went down to the local bookstore and I bought copies of all the major newspapers of all the cities I was interested in, and I did it just to go straight to the classified postings and see what was in the classified postings. Now I might still do that, but I would primarily go on the internet and look there for the job postings. Okay, if you're interested in news specific to the stock market, the internet would likely have a service that will fit your bill. The local, state, and federal governments also will maintain websites. Usually it'll be a .gov, indicated by the domain name .gov. And a type of website called a portal will act as a gateway for accessing a variety of information. This can be Microsoft, it can be Yahoo, it can be Google, it can be the federal government, which will have subsequent links embedded in that portal to take you to the various subordinate websites and departments. There's also what we call FTP and online collaboration. Anytime you send an image or a picture or a file to somebody, you have likely been using the file transfer protocol that enables users to transfer files to one another, to and from remote computers. Kind of handy, kind of cool. Just at Sunday breakfast today, one of the children of one of the church members, we took a picture of us at the breakfast after service and sent it to the gentleman who's reported he's going to be a pilot in the Air Force. He's down in Pensacola doing his flight training, and we just send him a picture, say hi, we miss him, he's in our prayers, and we're a little bit jealous because apparently we just found out that the flight pay for when you're on flight status in the Air Force is $840 a month, tax-free. That's in addition to your regular pay. That's a nice extra piece of change, and we're a little jealous that he's getting it and we're not. There are also various peer-to-peer file sharing tools and services that are available that allow or enable users to download directly from others' hard drives. Since Napster, there have been several other file sharing technologies such as BitTorrent and peer-to-peer technology. Once it navigates the legal and administrative challenges of whatever country/culture it happens to be in, can represent a vast opportunity for communications. There's also voice over internet protocol. We're seeing a huge growth in that with the impact of quarantine and the COVID. Voice over internet protocol is a process that basically digitizes voice and videos, breaking an analog verbal or audio signal down into digital packets. It can be used from device to device via internet-ready phones or via an analog telephone adapter to connect to a TV if or not, or you may have a TV that already has it installed into it, as most recently produced TVs are going to. And again, and Zoom is a good example of this. Blackboard Collaborate is a good example of this. The chat feature that we use in Blackboard Collaborate, for example, is a good example of this. There are also audio, video, and podcast services and tools available to you. Very, very popular music file format. Not the only one by any means, but the dominant one is the MP3 format. There's also iTunes, which my daughter swears by, and Windows Media Player. And sometimes online audio and video files will be referred to as podcasts, especially if they're done on a regular basis. And again, I am a huge fan of being able to go to the Libra.org organization. They have a huge library of free to listen to audiobooks that I can download and listen to in my car, because especially at certain times of the year, like when elections are coming up, I can get a little bit tired listening to all the political commercials that are out there. And I will, prefer to listen to a book. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen is a heck of a good book. Or Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein. Or the latest, someone discussing a review of the latest, Lenovo computers that are coming out. Audio, video, and podcasts also allow you what we do streaming, and a lot of us have been using this without thinking twice about it. If you've been watching movies or services on your phones, streaming is essentially sending a continuous stream of data to the receiving computer, and that includes your smartphones, web browser capability. The old data is erased as the new data arrives, so that there is no complete copy of the material downloads. You get to watch. You can. If you have the storage space, you can arrange to store it and play it on your machine or your device. But for most people, all they want to do is watch it, and you don't necessarily have the storage space that would be required for that. So you basically just stream it, and you watch it, and it works fine for most people. Streaming also protects the owners of copyright materials to some degree, and examples of this would be YouTube and Pandora have good examples of the internet standard in video or music streaming, also Netflix as well. Plus, and you may have seen this, if you take a YouTube video and you upload it and you add some music to it, and it is not royalty-free music, if it's like a popular song that belongs to a person or a band, you should find very quickly that YouTube is going to basically disable it, because someone's filed a complaint about you putting their material on your website without their permission. We also have audiobooks and ebooks becoming increasingly popular. I and my kids all have Kindles. A Kindle is something else I use, like when I'm stuck through the drive-thrus. Rather than listen to radio, I'll haul out a book and I'll read something on an e-version of a book. I have I have several hundred books on my Kindle. It's kind of handy. And audiobooks are another example of how you can be driving down the road and you can listen to a book, and you can actually use that time productively rather than listen to inane commercials about the blue algae, or political commercials, or stuff you just simply may not. Sometimes it just doesn't seem to be anything good on the radio. It's just easier to go ahead and listen, and makes more sense. Listen to a topic that you're actually going to get something out of. Health and science have all benefited from having websites with basic information as well as health news information. COVID is an excellent example of that. There is a huge amount of information out there regarding the coronavirus and the various impacts and studies and testing results of it. And other non-COVID sources include places such as WebMD and the MayoClinic.org. Excuse me. Internet is also becoming very, very good for online references. Online tools such as referencedesk.com, other reference sites like Google.Scholar, not Google, but Google.Scholar. Wikipedia, as we talked about previously, is a valuable reference source to start. but because it is open source, public domain, anybody can go in and make changes at any time. So you want to take anything you get there with a grain of salt. It's a good place to begin research, but whatever you find there, you would want to look up the references or do your own searches based on what you learn there and verify what you're being told. A wiki, okay, works like an online encyclopedia, but it allows anyone to contribute information, and that information may or may not be unbiased, may be accurate or inaccurate, and it's kind of on you, the individual, to verify if it's correct or not. It mostly is, but it isn't always. Okay, there are biases that creep into stuff. There's also gaming and gambling. Virtual reality is becoming more and more popular. Games that enhance a virtual reality effect. They enable each player to select a virtual body known as an avatar. My son loves to play his games with his friends doing this. Okay, and an example of this would be the millions of players that pay a monthly fee to play the World of Warcraft or Minecraft or some other game, and the game popularity seems to ebb and flow, on a yearly basis. Distance learning platforms like what we're seeing in use today, okay, are developed in response to the rising cost of education and geographical challenges. On the one hand, some of the aspects of online learning are a little bit inconvenient. On the other hand, it is kind of nice for many people, especially I still remember being deployed overseas, okay, when the internet was first opening up, and being able to attend classes online, because if you're in a war zone, there are, University of Maryland is simply not going to have a college campus there. But if you can log on to University of Maryland, on the weekends and do your schoolwork, that was kind of cool. That was kind of neat. And of course, web demonstrations, presentations, and meetings, provided that you had the necessary bandwidth. And that's something that we sometimes tend to forget about. One of the reasons why I emphasize the use of chat in our Blackboard Collaborate sessions is that it requires the minimum amount of bandwidth from each individual so that the most people can participate with the least number being impacted. Okay. As we have talked about, and some of you had a chance to research netiquette, okay? People can behave just like in real life when people can behave or misbehave. I'm sure most of us have either experienced or heard about somebody just going down the street, mind their own business, and somebody driving by in a car, for whatever reason, gives them a gesture they don't necessarily appreciate, okay, or gives them a friendly wave, which they do appreciate. Netiquette. Okay, there are rules for what we consider to be good behavior on the internet. Okay, and there are 10 rules for what we call being a good net citizen, having good network behavior. Okay, remember that we're all human. Okay, try to avoid offending others unintentionally. Okay, bear in mind that when you send messages, and sometimes it's easy to be miffed and mad at somebody and you send them off a message, those messages cannot be retrieved. There's very few things you can send at the heat of the moment. You can't wait 24 hours, and if it's still worth sending, then send it then. A permanent copy of a message probably exists somewhere. People are getting into trouble all the time because they did or said something, and then they thought they deleted the message, and it turned out, well, no, actually, if it's on the internet, if it's been on the internet, there's a copy of it somewhere. Others can forward or copy messages. Never mind, you may have said not to do that. People do it all the time, and this is especially true for individuals with their phone and text messages. Okay, you want to be, never mind if there's your BFF, okay? You want to be real careful about what you send to other people. The internet also allows within chat sessions what we call moderated environments, and we have here a moderated environment with Blackboard, which is your instructor, okay? It's an individual who filters messages and bans people who break the rules. Rule violations can range from making insults, being rude, to just simply not staying on topic. Usually the moderator is going to have some to complete power of the situation and can basically enforce the standards. If the moderator is too harsh, however, people might switch to another group. And you see this, in fact, on YouTube, for example, all the time. Someone will start a group, a bunch of people will join it, but the moderator is extremely strict or comes across as extremely strict. and people just basically don't want to play with that particular person, and they choose not to play with that person, and they just leave the group. We also have the concept of net neutrality. It's a code of fairness that states that all internet traffic will be treated with equal priority. There are some variations of this depending on the particular utility in the particular state. And the idea of net neutrality is that one packet will not be favored over another. It's basically like you're on the road. The speed limits are the same for everybody. Okay. An example of how we get away from net neutrality to a certain extent is that when you have on the road, you see the maximum speed for cars is 70 miles an hour. The maximum speed for trucks is 65 miles an hour. Okay, it's fair and reasonable. And there's good reasons for it, but it's a good example of getting a little bit. We're getting a little bit away from net neutrality. Or I still remember when I went to my father's funeral in Arlington at Washington D.C. and I flew in and I rented a car and I was driving down the highway to Arlington Cemetery, and there was a lane on the left side of the road with triangles on it. I didn't know what it was all about. Nobody seemed to be using it. Traffic was getting kind of thick. So I just hopped over and I got on it. I couldn't understand what was going on. And I got away with it, but I found out later that that was a high-speed, high-use traffic lane only for cars with at least two people in it, okay? Which is another example of how we're getting a little bit away from the whole net neutrality thing. Or if you have a dedicated bike lane on the roads, that's for bikes only, not for cars. That's another example of getting a little bit away from net neutrality and making the point that while net neutrality overall is a good thing to do, sometimes you have good reasons for getting away from the strict implementation of it for very, very good reasons. Privacy issues. Amazing number of people think that everything they do on the internet is private, nobody can see it. And in fact, that is not true at all. People get fired all the time. Every week, really, in the U.S., people get fired every day because if you are at work, if you're on your employer's dime, you are expected to be doing your employer's the work you're being paid to do, not by doing other things. Okay, don't send out private emails, especially don't send out emails on the company email system with inappropriate material. Current law gives employers a right to know just about everything you're doing at work except for when you're in the bathroom. It's just the way it is. It's not unique to the U.S. You're on the employer's dime. They have a right to know that you are working in their interest. Monitoring employee emails becoming more and more common as more and more people tend to lose sight of what they're at work to do. We also have issues with intellectual property known as copyright infringement. Someone that takes the time and trouble to develop something and they post it on the web, it doesn't mean that they don't still own it. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998 goes back a few years, okay, prohibits people from disabling software encryption programs that are on the internet, okay. There are exceptions to this, what we call as the fair use exceptions. And one of those is, in fact, using like, for example, if we were to distribute the first chapter of the textbook or the Skills for Success book to everybody in the class, that would be an academic fair use exception to the Copyright Act. But distributing the entire book, no, could not do that. Okay, not right to do that. And a little bit more extra credit, if you want, research and list the URLs of 3 websites that provide useful information on netiquette, okay, and list 2 pieces of information that appear on these sites. This is a little bit different from what you've done previously, okay, where you read and did a summary. Now, you're going to basically do a little bit more research on independent websites. And again, submit this in Assignment 9. Okay, we've talked a little bit about web browsers, what web browsers are and the common features, what a URL is and its main parts, some of the tools we use to navigate the web browsers, some of the tools we use within a browser to mark websites for future use, some of the types of tools used to search the web, how to evaluate a website, the concept of intellectual property and cyberbullying and the importance of netiquette, and the ethical issues regarding privacy and geolocation. And you don't have a lot of privacy rights when you're at work or doing work, okay? As we talked about previously, okay, what we're doing this week, Chapter 3, Read through the chapter. Everybody should be getting their books in by now. You should be working on Word Chapters 1 and Word Chapter 2, okay, in the Skills for Success book. And this week in particular, you want to be focusing on and submitting Word Chapter 3 and Word Chapter 4. Okay, you want to turn those in. Next week, we're going to, based on your successful completion of Word Chapters 1 through 4, we're going to have a Word Lab quiz. There's an old copy available to you on Blackboard if you want to see what I'm talking about. Okay, and we will do that next week. And your midterm exam is coming, and it will be based on the material in your Technology in Action book. So I look at Chapter 3 and especially the review questions in Chapter 3. Subject your questions. I will be available in Blackboard Collaborate chat because of the minimum bandwidth consumption until the end of the class.